What's up, guys? Today is August 17th, 2014, and among other things, that's Hell Day. You don't know what Hell Day is? It is when Shockwave, using Teletran 3's teleportation abilities, jumped from Cybertron to Earth and conquered the planet. And eventually that worked itself out because Ratchet was accidentally teleported too, and then when they put him back where he was supposed to be, all the events kind of unhappened. So it happened, but it didn't happen. But it happened. Trust me. Alright, so in honor of this most joyous of days, we're going to do all of my Shockwave figures. They consist of 3. I have another one, but that's hanging up on the wall, and I'm not opening that one. Not even for you guys. Sorry. We're going to start with the oldest, work our way to the newest. We have animated, movie, and Prime. For those of you who didn't watch Transformers Animated, which you should, because if you can actually get into it, it's a really good show. In Transformers Animated, Shockwave was a double agent. He was known as Long Arm Prime when he was in the Autobot ranks, and this is Long Arm's alt mode. It's a crane. Not really too much to say about this mode. Doesn't really do anything, but kind of crane. I can use it as an adjective and a verb. And he doesn't really roll because he only has 2 wheels and neither of them are touching. So he just kind of sits there and does what he needs to do. But when he needs to kill something, he becomes the tank of Shockwave. It likes to fall apart. And that's it. Again, he really can't roll in this mode either that well because he only has 4 little wheels under here. So he just kind of slides. Turret will turn and it will move up like it would in crane mode. Again, there's nothing really fantastic about the alt modes of this figure. They just kind of sit there and really do nothing. But he really shines in his Decepticon robot mode. But first we'll go to Long Arm. Long Arm there. Forgot to close these up. You can see it has a face and like a third eye, the all-seeing eye up at the top of his head. It's kind of short and stubby in this mode. You know, he's got his horns down here, but his Shockwave, again, this is Long Arm Prime. The Shockwave mode is really amazing though, because he as you can see, we went from a face to the face of Shockwave. Flip it so he's a Decepticon. This mode to me is actually, it's a little lanky, but I think it's pretty sweet. It's real. It's a modern art take on Shockwave, I think, but it fits him kind of well, and he can hold his cannon. This one actually has both hands, and he can hold his cannon. If he'll hold it. He's just got a little port on here. There we go. I like the stag horns that they kind of gave him in this one. I think it's pretty neat. It's like just a different take on Shockwave. Now, on to the movie Shockwave. This is actually the only movie figure that I own because most of the movie figures are trash. But this guy, I saw him in Toys R Us, believe it or not. And I kind of looked at it and I said, he looks kind of awesome. So I took a chance and I bought him, and he turned out that he was pretty awesome. He's odd as Shockwaves go. Shockwave kind of evolved from the standalone cannon to the mobile weapons platform of the tank. But this one is kind of odd as far as Shockwaves goes because he's got this blade for some odd reason, and his cannon is offside to the right. I don't understand the point of this blade here, but it looks kind of badass, so I'll leave it. This movie figure, like all the movie figures from Dark of the Moon, have this activation weapon mode that kind of does like that. I find that most of the time it gets in the way of his hose, so I just usually leave it closed up. I think it looks better anyway. This, because he has these two giant wheels on the front and the little ones on the back, he will actually roll quite decently as opposed to the others. But again, like most Shockwaves, transforming him is pretty easy, which will. There he is. This is one of, even if this is a movie figure, this is one of the, wait, I forgot to flip his heels out, so I won't stand up. This is one of the more, this is a pretty sweet Shockwave figure. I gotta admit, I was kind of surprised that this guy came out of the movie line. He's just, because he's got this skeletal chest here, and with all these spikes and the blade, he almost looks like medieval Shockwave. Like he's just got armor on, which they do, but like he's got medieval, like iron, steel armor on. This one does. It's one of the first ones to bring back the actual hose going from his pack, which is actually kind of cool because the wheels end up back there, so it looks like it'll charge up and then go through his gun. But it's one of the first ones in a long time to actually have the hose that goes from the pack to the gun. The gun will, of course, work in this mode too. Of course, I think just about all Shockwaves just have the Cyclops face with no mouth or anything. But as far as movie figures go, this is pretty awesome. It's one of the only ones that I like. He has light piping for his eye. I don't really have any light behind me, so I don't know if it's picking it up. But the light piping actually works pretty good in this figure. He does have, if you want to give it to him, a hand, which I don't, and I know the cannon's supposed to be on the left hand. Not a big deal, but I just don't give him the hand, and it fills up away pretty good. And actually, it will come off, and he can just have his hand out. But there's really, I don't think it's got a, there's no way for him to like actually hold the cannon here, because it's not really made to do that. It's just made to sit on his arm. But that is Dark of the Moon Shockwave, and we'll go on to the last one, which I think is the best one. We have Transformers Prime Shockwave. Shockwave was late coming to the show. We didn't know if we were going to get a Shockwave in Prime, but we finally got one. And like I said, I think it's pretty much one of the best Shockwaves that we've seen. He's supposed to have armor. The armor is pretty much trash. It's just these little rubber pieces that fit here to give him claws and here that gives him like 6 eyes or something. I don't know. I think it's stupid. They're just little orange pieces of rubber. I don't know if you've ever seen purple and orange together. It doesn't really work. So I never put it on him, and I'm not going to put him on him for this review. In this mode, he's actually pretty sweet. He's like just a stripped down tank, so it makes you think that he can move pretty fast. Rolling, believe it or not, doesn't do that well, being that he has full-size wheels under here. The wheels over here just don't even hardly touch the ground because of the rubber treads. These are actually rubber treads. But he just looks, he's got this little thing, which this actually came out when I was a kid. We had Burger King toys that would do that. But again, he retains the spikes. He's real spiky. And just he just looks lightweight, like he would move super fast in this mode, which I think in the cartoon he was actually pretty fast. Transforming him he's a little harder than the rest of them, but it's pretty much a general Shockwave transformation, so we'll hit that real quick. Always pops off. Alright, here he is, almost. I saved the best part for last that I'm actually going to do, because it's pretty sweet. This one, like the Dark of the Moon Shockwave, has a cable that ties his pack to his cannon, and it's actually the tank tread here. You kind of slide it out and unwrap it, and it plugs into the back of his cannon here. Like that. And I think that's pretty awesome, because it kind of gets it out of the way in the tank mode, which is kind of a problem with the Dark of the Moon Shockwave when you're doing it. It's not a huge deal, but it's a bit of a problem. But I just love how it kind of just folds up and becomes a tank tread. And this actually does look how the cable looked in the cartoon too. I mean, in the cartoon it was metal, but it has that evocative look from the cartoon. And again, this mode is pretty sweet. I think all Shockwaves are sweet though. I don't think there's a bad Shockwave. But he keeps the spikes on his head. The cannon will continue to do this in this mode. Again, light piping works really good. He's even got this little translucent piece. Sometimes it'll kind of light up here on the chest if you get it in the right thing. And one thing I really like that they did with this figure is the shoulder pads. If you bring his arm up, the shoulder pads will move with him, but they're spring loaded, so they'll move back down with his arm, so you won't have this little look thing if you pose him that way or move him around or something. I mean, it's not a big deal. Obviously you can just push it down. I just think it's kind of neat that they added a little spring in the shoulder pads. So that's pretty much all my Shockwaves. Bring them all out. Of course, he would be the one that wouldn't want to stand up. There we go. This guy's kind of the last of the good plastic we had, because as we keep going on down, we get worse and worse plastic and Transformers, and they just get cheaper and cheaper. But we deal with it because they're awesome. And you can see also the size differences. Of course, this actually should be like this. These are all Voyagers, by the way. They're all Voyager class. And you can see how the farther back you go, the bigger they are. And then we just keep getting smaller in our Voyagers, and I think now they're even smaller. But that Shockwave, This is Hell Day, and I hope you survive it.